This is episode 50, Get Staffed Up with Brett Trembly.
Can you remember a time you failed? A time you were so close to your goal but it all came crashing down? We've all been there. But why does this happen? Why do we sometimes fail when we attempt to scale? Here's the secret. In order to grow your business and expand your mind, you need a controlled environment, like a plant growing in a greenhouse. It's my mission to help experts and entrepreneurs grow rapidly by leveraging outside resources and unlocking universal wisdom. But the question is, how will they do it? Join me on this epic journey as we monetize our passions, scale our businesses, and master eternal abundance. My name is Aaron Civitarese, and this is the Growth Podcast.
All right, this is the Growth Podcast. My name is Aaron Civitarese, and I'm here today with my guest, Brett Trembly, my man here, co-founder of Get Staffed Up, something that everybody needs and something that not everybody understands, myself included when I was new to the journey. So Brett, welcome to the Growth Podcast, man. Pleasure to have you here.
Aaron, pleasure to be on with you, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So we were getting to know each other a bit before, talking about the necessity of people understanding the value of outsourcing and all these things. And I'm pumped to pull some knowledge out of that noggin of yours, man, for real, because this is something that's really necessary for people to understand. But before we get into your business model and all that stuff, tell us a bit about you, man. Who are you?
Sure. So, by education, I am a lawyer in Miami, Florida, have a 10 attorney, 20, I think 6 employee law firm. Just hit the Inc. 5000. We represent business owners and employers, franchises. We do litigation, but for the most part, we're trying to keep people out of the courtroom. And then, what happened is I have a business background, right? I started like kind of trying to make my own money when I was a kid in first grade. One of my mom's favorite stories, she was like, "Where'd you get the Coke?" Me and my older brother, I was the younger one. And my older brother's like, "Oh, Brett bought it for us." Like, well, how the hell did he do that? I was taking the pens. I guess I was stealing the pens from my dad's jewelry store and selling them to my classmates to make money. So, that story was like, it was always okay for me. But now that I have kids, now it like makes more sense because I couldn't imagine my own kids doing that. But to me, that just always made sense. Like you just try to make money. So being an entrepreneur, I just happened to run a law firm for a while. I still am. I still am very actively running that law firm. But then late 2017, my friend found out about offshore staffing, had an idea. We would have breakfast, once a month, and it really helped us get on the same page over the years. Not planning to do business together, but that's the way it developed. So we started Get Staffed Up. And we do offshore staffing for business owners, and we focus on law firms because we're both lawyers. So that's what our niche marketing does. And we really got some infrastructure in place for the first 6 months. So let's say, July 2018, just over 2 years ago, we started really trying to make sales and run the business, and we're blowing up in a good way now. I mean, this business is going like wildfire. So that's kind of me in a few minutes.
Yeah, totally, man. That's awesome. I mean, I can understand why it would be wildfire, especially now. We're recording this podcast during like the COVID pandemic stuff, right? And if people weren't working virtually before, if they weren't Zooming and having VAs and stuff, they sure as hell do now. Right? Yeah. Like you're just in the thick of it now. So tell us a little bit about like, why do people even need these types of assistants? You know what I mean? Like what's the difference between a brick and mortar law firm or a business conventional versus having someone on the other side of a computer? Like why is that something that someone would want to do?
Yeah, but before I answer that,
sure.
I want to just point out that it would be easy for me to kick back and be like, yeah, got this great business because I knew this COVID thing was going to happen and we're ahead of the curve. before COVID, we were having to convince people what I'm about to explain to you. Whereas now people just get it, like, oh, I have to work, virtually, remotely, or my people want to work that way. So it makes a lot more sense now. So, to
Okay,
answer your
wait. So
question,
wait, before we go into that, then let me ask you this. Back in the day when you were launching and when you had this idea with your buddy over breakfast and stuff, and you were discussing the idea of it and you were putting it out there to your network and your friends and your colleagues, what was going on in your mind, or what was going on internally when other people were not seeing your vision?
So, it was interesting. My story is that I started my law firm in 2011. And years later, I discovered that what the reason I didn't grow early on is I was afraid of failure. And why would you be afraid of failure? Because I was afraid of the criticism that I thought I would receive if I failed. So what a lot of people do, Aaron, at least my opinion and my sort of study and research, is starting a business is cool, and you make the leap, but growing a business is much harder, because putting yourself out there to start it, you can kind of just like be faster than the slowest gazelle and not go out of business, and people are still kind of like high-fiving you. So especially in the law arena, you see a lot of 60-year-old guys with one paralegal, and they've been that way, like just the two of them for 40 years. And like, well, in my experience of 40 years running a law firm, and it's like, look, no offense, but why am I listening to your 40 years when clearly you haven't figured it out in 40 years? Like, you've done nothing to grow your business. You just have a job. Your job owns you instead of working for someone else. And I don't mean that as if like I now am better or know things that other people don't, because I was there. I was so afraid to hire people myself that I did everything for the first 2 years myself. I answered my own phones, licked my own stamps, sent my own faxes, took my own messages. And I could never figure out why I wasn't growing and why people weren't just throwing business at me. And in our own heads, a lot of times we think what we have is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And so I finally made my first hire in-house, full, I think it was like 30 hours a week. It was a law student who decided to work for me, which means I spent twice as much time on my legal work and I doubled my revenue. And at least at that point, I was like, okay, this works. It's math. Like, let's not be so afraid, like a lot of other people. And so I went for it, and I just started hiring like crazy. So, when people weren't getting it, fast forwarded to 2018, I was okay with it. I was waiting for the light bulb moment. And we were talking about what to name the company before Get Staffed Up. It was like, makes too much sense.com or nobrainer.com. Because when you start to think about it, you're like, wait a minute, instead of having this revolving door of people domestically who don't want to make $10 an hour, nor should they, because they can't really live off that, I can hire someone offshore who's friendly, who's smart, who just happens to be born in a different country. Why does that make them any less intelligent than us, right? The only barrier is, language sometimes, but let's find those people that speak really good English. And when the light bulb goes off, it's like, oh my gosh, why wouldn't I do this? Let me get 3, let me get 4. And so there wasn't, look, we were having to explain this to a lot of people, and there was skepticism, especially from the older crowd, but then it starts growing, and then you get a little bit of market acceptance and a little bit more. And now it's so easy for us. It's basically, how fast can we grow this company?
Yeah. Yeah. The floodgates have opened, eh? It's interesting, there's fear and uncertainty. There's fear when there's uncertainty, right? And you being able to go out and hire your first like in-house legal aid secretary, right? You broke down that fear and you smashed through it and you said, I'm just going to do it. And then you saw the numbers worked and you're like, well, wait a minute. Like, why? And then you just went for it hard, right? Do you feel that parallels in life in other ways, maybe in health or relationships, or, people going after their dreams? A lot of the people listening to the growth podcast are in growth mindset, personal development. They're always striving to be the best version of themselves. But in doing so, you come across self-sabotage patterns and loops and things. Did you find yourself in any of these types of loops in the early days of scaling your team and growing your business?
Yes, there are definitely terror barriers that people get to. So I'm in an organization now where people are taking their businesses. The goal is to go from wherever you are, but generally probably 80% of the people are about like 200,000 to three or four in revenue, and they want to get to 1 million. And then a lot of people hit that $1 million mark and they act as if they have it all figured out and they've made it, but they basically stagnate. And it's like the depending on how big you want to be, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with getting to a level that you're living a comfortable life and you don't really need to push yourself there. What I have a problem with is most people lie to themselves about where they really want to be. So when I was first asked, when I had a $300,000 ish law firm, this is total, revenues, annual, very, very small operation, what I want to do and what I want to be and what my goals are. My goals were very, very small because I couldn't perceive myself being that big anyway. And so I thought, well, if I had $1 million law firm, like, where's my helicopter going to land? And like, wow, can you imagine how incredible life is going to be? And that's just so immature to think that way, because this is just revenue in. It doesn't mean, you're making all that money and you're taking it home. And so people generally, early on, they don't take risks because they're afraid of the criticism of failure, right? I didn't want to hire because if I couldn't pay that person, I was waiting to have this arbitrary amount of money in the bank before I could hire that person, which is silly because that person will make you more money. And then I was afraid that if I couldn't pay them, that the whole world would be like, oh, look at Brett, he had to fire someone, what a loser. People are too busy to focus on you. Like, how egocentric is that I thought the whole world was going to sit around and think about me? It just doesn't work that way. But even so, even though people listening to this, growth podcast, Aaron, have probably taken some risks, but then like, oof, I made it. I took my risk. I'm okay now. And a lot of people fail to continue to push the envelope and take more risks and more risks. And I'm not saying that that's like, you can't live life doing that and getting to a comfortable spot. But I really think people lie to themselves and they'll take some calculated risk, but then they'll stop at some point. And I think that's kind of where you mentioned the self-sabotage.
Yeah, absolutely. The old saying, if you're not growing, you're dying, right?
100%.
That's it. If you're stagnant, or if you're, they say in business, right? Like, if you're a horizontal line, it's eventually going to go down. Gravity is going to pull that thing down, like, hypothetically, right? It's the same thing in life. Totally. So speaking of growth and things, let's talk a little bit about like your personal development and stuff. Do you have any routines or books or personal development things that you partake in that have helped you in your journey to become the man and the business owner that you are?
Oh man, 100%. I love when people ask me this because it's not often, but have you ever read The Miracle Morning?
No, I read the 5 a.m. Club. Is it similar?
I don't know. I haven't read the 5 a.m. Club. So maybe, I guess I've learned that there's common principles. Maybe it's not all that unique, but a guy named Hal Elrod wrote the book, and there's a big community now. It's essentially doing 6 things in the morning before 8 a.m., right? So some people get up at 5, some people 5:30, some people 6. But if you can do these 6 things before you even get your day started, you're going to conquer your day and not just put out fires and be reactive to your day. So, and you can switch up the amount of time. I know other people have different routines, like they just do journaling and one other thing, but it's meditation, affirmations, your vision board, exercise, reading, and scribing. And I, was introduced to this by a good friend at a presentation back in 2016. And it really helped me, because, the law firm was growing at that point, but it really helped me gain control of not feeling so overwhelmed and stressed with the growth, because I had, young kids. I have 3 kids now. So there's a lot that goes on, and you can't do everything. And just changing my life around, because I've always been a night owl. And as I mentioned to you, I'm kind of on a 5-week vacation right now, and I've slipped back into staying up late and getting up much later than I would like. But man, just for my mental health, that routine and the meditation and the journaling and the exercise, when I do those things in the morning, I know I'm going to have a great day. Never fails. And when I don't, sometimes I have good days, but I can't guarantee it.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I totally agree. Morning routine it 100% changed my life. Having a solid morning routine that is non-negotiable. It's just non-negotiable. I refuse. My calendar is not open, and this is crazy as an entrepreneur, as a business owner and stuff. But I'm in a place now where my team is very small. There's 4 of us, right? I'm just getting the ball rolling with my online journey, so I don't have this massive conglomerate thing happening. I can afford to spend time on myself, especially in the morning. So I do. Got to fill your own cup first, right? So in the morning, I don't have anything on my calendar until 10, which it sounds insane to some people, but I just simply don't. You cannot get on my calendar before 10. It's blocked. You're not getting there. It's for me. And I get up at 5 or 6, 6 at the latest.
Nice.
And
Nice.
that's a long period of time. But I really, like you, man, if I get up, I love to run. I shouldn't say I love to run. I love how I feel after I run.
Exactly. Yeah, that's more accurate.
Yeah, I'm more like, oh shit, I got to go for my run. Damn it, it's raining. But I do, so I go out and do my run. I listen to I love listening to like Jim Rohn and stuff mixed with techno, which is crazy. DJs mixing like personal development work with high BPM music. And I run
that exists, or
you
do that yourself?
Spotify. No, man, Spotify's got it.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah. So I run to that. I listen to that. And, I go do my thing. I come back. I have a similar sort of routine. I'll journal. I'll set up my day. I'll write out my tasks. I'll do a gratitude exercise, vision board type stuff. Definitely meditate 2 or 3 times. Different types of meditation, some guided, some pure inner breathing style. Yoga with my wife, if she forces me into it. Again, I hate doing it, but I love how I feel after it. I hate getting on the mat, but if she asks me with her pretty eyes, I'll do it. And I'm like, oh, damn it. And then I'll do it. And I'm like, oh, I feel so good,
Yeah.
But yeah, the morning routine, man, it changes everything. And there's something about conquering yourself and your discipline and just smashing that out in the morning. You feel like you've got it now. The rest of the days, it's a cakewalk because I literally just conquered myself. Right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. How long have you been, like, when did that start for you? Has that been forever or like?
No. This was late January of 2016.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that I then introduced the book to my now business partner. So he read the same book and he's way more disciplined. I mean, he went like 900 days without missing one time, and doing the full routine. I cheat. I do like the minute routine here and there. But so we read that same book, right? We started doing the morning routines at the same time. And then we had our monthly breakfast and we read other books, and that process unknowingly aligned us to become business partners. So without that book, I don't believe Get Staffed Up even exists in the first place, which is pretty wild.
That is wild. You guys both got onto the same journey at the same time, and your frequencies actually aligned, and you literally became a mastermind. Right?
Yeah. You're getting into Napoleon Hill concepts now, right? Like we operated ourselves at the same wavelength and created that third, aura or spirit or whatever of a mastermind. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. You guys created a third entity, which is you together. And it came from the root of having a similar morning routine and sticking to the discipline and mutually respecting each other for doing it and loving yourself more for doing it and all that put together. Boom. Birth of a company. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's so cool, man. I love it. Cool, man. So, what was the name of the book again?
The Miracle Morning.
The Miracle Morning. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
The book that I read that really helped me, I mean, with morning routines and stuff, I got that from a range of places. But the book that I read that was about a morning thing was the 5 a.m. Club. And the leveraged point in that was basically, you've got a bunch of hours on top of most of your competition. And, you know, even if your competition is yourself, it's like your old self was sleeping, you know, your new self is awake, crushing it. And your actual business competitors out there in the marketplace, you know, hypothetically, they're sleeping as well. And it basically lays out like the compounding effect of kicking ass early in the morning repeatedly.
Yeah, so I agree with some of that and disagree with some of that. Not with you, but with that statement. I think it's nuanced because it depends on what you're doing at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning, at 7 in the morning, right? I was involved in for a long time in a networking organization that is pretty big all over the world now, I think, but it was started in the US. It's called BNI, or Business Networking International. And, you know, on those mornings, once per week, you wake up at 5 a.m., you don't have time for your routine. And this was mostly pre my morning routine. And then, you know, you'd show up and somebody inevitably in that room, you know, when you say, you know, we're here networking with the best people in the business and our competition is sleeping, right? And yeah, everyone would repeat that and it would feel good. And the concept is good, but I was in a group where I didn't have hungry people around me. I didn't have people passing referrals. I didn't have people operating at the same wavelength as me. And I was giving out a lot of business and I wasn't receiving, you know, business in return. And maybe that makes me sound selfish or not, but it doesn't matter because it affects your energy. And so, you know, I look back now and I kind of laugh. I get so much more from being in my own house or my own world, doing my morning routine by myself with no other soul on the world, and it advanced me further, faster than being around other people claiming to be outworking their competition early in the morning. And so, you know, I agree with the idea that you're up but it depends on what you're doing with your time. Like always, you know, Think and Grow Rich, which you and I already referred to, you know, getting off the hamster wheel and giving yourself time to think about what comes next is the difference between, you know, you having this podcast, Aaron, and me having Get Staffed Up and whatever else we want in the world, and someone else waking up at 60 saying like, well, I just worked for someone else for the past 35 years, you know, maybe it's time to retire. It's like, unless you give yourself the time to seek mental clarity and meditate and find what you want spiritually in life, then I don't, you know, there's like, you have to have that time. And so whether it's the 5 a.m. book club concept or miracle morning, whatever it is, it's got to be alone time, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I would not want to be on a Zoom with a bunch of people talking about developing ourselves. We'll do that all day in our meetings and shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The mornings for me and solo time. So speaking of meditating, let's just go on that for a sec, because obviously we both understand the immense value of going inside and listening to your emotions and slowing down, right? I'll tell you a quick story about the podcast, actually, since you brought it up. I came up with the idea for the podcast not only for the name and the general idea of it, meaning how do people turn into the best version of themselves? How do people grow? I want to talk to experts who can tell me stories about how they did it, right? That's essentially the premise. But it was more like, why am I even doing a podcast? It all came to me during a meditative state. So my wife and I were in Asia. We had lost everything. We lost our jobs. We were consultants, so we lost our consulting contracts. We lost all of our investments, basically all with one swoop, due to politics and some disaster stuff that was happening in our reality. It all went away overnight, literally. And that's a story for another day. But, you know, we were at ground zero after working for a decade at this life we constructed, which was a great life. We were gone. And we decided to leave Asia and start again in Europe, which is where I am now. I was on the plane. I had debt. I had nothing going on. And I just knew that I wanted to do something else. I didn't want to do what I was doing before. And I knew I wanted to be online because the future is online. I wanted to be on here and network with people that I could touch and you know, I want to do that. And I wanted to find myself in a new space. So on the plane, as I was flying over the ocean, I literally started, I meditated for a while. I was listening to one of my guided meditations on my phone. I was listening to it. It ended and I was kind of out of it. And then I paused it and then I was silent. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to like sit in this for a moment, as you do. And I just sat there and everyone was sleeping. It was like night in the plane, dark. And I was like, what am I going to do? How can I actually talk to people? How can I get someone like you? How can I get influencers, business owners, CEOs, very successful humans? How can I get them to talk to me? I don't have any clout in this space. I can't tell them about my nightclubs in Manila that ran. They don't care. You know what I mean? I can't tell them about our beach resort and I threw big parties. Like, it doesn't matter in this world here. So I was like, how can I do that? And I was meditating on it, and it just literally downloaded and clicked all at the same time, as things do in meditation, right? It was, podcasting is where I get all of my information, where I learn a lot of my stuff. Be the host of one of those things, and then you'll have an excuse to then reach out to people and talk to them and bring them on, because you'll be providing a platform, right? And this all came to me, and then I was like, well, what's it going to be about? And I was like, well, I'm in a massive growth move right now. I should talk about growth and personal development and blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, the growth podcast. And it just all literally happened to me in about 5 minutes on the plane in a meditative state. And if I did not take that moment to breathe, if I would have been watching Modern Family on the damn headset of the TV or whatever the hell people were doing, which I never do on planes, right? Obviously. But if I would have been watching a movie there, my brain would have been consumed. There's no way I would have thought of that, because I wouldn't have been there. But I took a moment to breathe. It came to me, and I did it. I executed the moment I landed. I got a mentor. I built the whole thing, and I launched. And that was the catalyst for any success that I've had online now and in the future, because I've networked, done 100 episodes or so recorded. I met tons of cool people. I've got contracts. I got things going on. And it literally all came from that moment of clarity.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that story. One. Two, I'm not surprised at all that it would happen during, a meditative state like that. I guess it just doesn't surprise me, because when else would it click like that, And so, something else you touched upon. Have you read Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill?
Love it, man. I love it so much. Yeah.
Yeah. They just, the big takeaway for me was that most people drift through life and don't, there's, 2% of people just think through everything instead of just drifting. And I guess when you said, instead of watching a movie, you were meditating, and that was the example for me. Like, you could have been drifting through, absent-mindedly through that plane. Instead, it changed your life. That's incredible.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you. That's a good analogy, actually. And, I had my journal out. I was writing down my thoughts and things. And of course, I put it all down. I kind of closed my eyes again, put it down some more. And then I put back on my audio book or whatever I was listening to, and, went about my day. And then when I landed, I got to my wife's family home in Russia. We were there for a little while, and I opened that up and I was like, oh yeah, I was going to start a podcast. I totally forgot about that. Because on planes, does this happen to you? Do you get all sorts of crazy ideas on planes and you're just like writing like a madman?
I was just going to ask you the same thing, because that's exactly what happens to me. Are you like claustrophobic or anxious on planes at all?
Not at all. Zero.
Yeah, that's weird, because claustrophobia runs in my family, and then I never really had it on planes until I hit 30, and it was kind of like a stressful time in my life, and then all of a sudden, like it all came back. So I tried to sort of get in a different state of mind on a plane anyway, right? Like, get myself into meditation or just dive into work. I mean, yeah, sometimes I'll watch the movies on a super long flight, but I have a lot of ideas, and they come to me quickly, and I write very quickly on a plane.
Yeah, me too. It's crazy. Yeah. I tell my wife that all the time. I'm like, oh, sweet. We're like, because we travel a lot. We love traveling and flying around and doing cool shit, right? Life's fun. We love having fun lives, right? So we're always flying somewhere, doing something fun. Trains are the same. I literally was on a train a couple of days ago from Austria, Germany, down here to Rome. We were in Croatia for like a month hanging out, and we did like the loop. And the train is the same thing, man. Looking out the windows, and I'm just like, just ripping out ideas. Yeah. It's just, it's, I wonder what that is. Like, what is it? Is it because your mind is, it's inspired by what's going on around you outside? You realize you're going over the planet and you're moving quickly, and it's like you have inspiration download, and you're also free to think because you're not consumed with work or people around you. Like, what is it?
Yeah. I think it's a combination of changing your environment, which changes your energy, and being unplugged and having intentional thought time. My co-founder and I have Get Staffed Up. We talk about this. We had a retreat and we were in a very small room, and we're like, it's not that much more expensive for a bigger room. Like, why don't, like, we need to learn this lesson. So we went to the bigger room and we had some breakthroughs that day that I don't think we would have ever had in the other room, because it wasn't comfortable enough to walk around and think and have, you know, the right space for the energy. And you know, we refer to that lesson a lot. And so that's kind of what I think it is. It's just about changing your mental state. You know, it just, like, if you go to your couch and you turn on, you know, whatever, a TV in the background, it's not the same.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely not the same. Absolutely. So go ahead.
Let me ask you guys. So you're Canadian, your wife's Russian. You guys have lived in Asia and Europe. I mean, this is a worldly crew you got going on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool. That's very cool.
I met my wife 11 years ago now in Switzerland. We were in grad school. We went there to grad school and met her there. And then we went to the corporate space in the hospitality world, because, you know, that was our MBA is in hospitality, right? So we went over to Asia. We were working corporate hotels, you know, high-end 5-star stuff, climbing the corporate ladder, and hating every second of it, quite frankly. And then we moved from corporate to consulting, and that's when we moved to Southeast Asia, and we went to the Philippines, to a place called Boracay, which is like the crown jewel of the Philippines. It's like the Phuket of Thailand in the Philippines. It's like the party tourism place, right? So we went there and we did our thing for a while, consulted all over the place, did some great stuff, invested a lot, and did a lot of things. The president's an absolute lunatic, and he's so corrupt. And I hope he doesn't hear this. He might send a hitman. He's so damn corrupt with China. It's insane. And he sold his soul. So China came in and they basically took over the island, literally. Like, they bought all the real estate, did all this stuff. And then they closed the economy for a whole year. Wow. No planes or boats allowed on the island, like, literally. And so obviously what happens, our business goes to zero and we lose everything that we'd worked for. And I lost my mind. Like, I broke down, you know, I was crying and drinking tequila shots at 7 a.m. and shit. Cause I was like, fuck, you know, like, we've been doing this for so long and we had our shit together and it was going very well. And now it's like completely gone. And I had no control over that, which bothers me. You know, they always say you always have control. In this moment, the only control I had was the fact that I chose to move there. That was the only control. Like, he literally closed the economy. So that it broke me, but then I had to go on this deep inner journey to sort of figure out the next move. And again, it was the stillness. The whole island was empty. I would run in the morning with my dog and it would be just us on this super beautiful, like 7-kilometer long white sand beach that is typically full of hundreds of thousands of tourists, completely empty. And I would be running and I remember I was like the happiest, most grateful human ever in that moment, because I've been doing tons of inner work for the last month or so, because I had to stop the other sabotaging work. I had to snap out of it. So I started reading and meditating and journaling and thinking about the future. And I just got super grateful for life in general, but I was completely broke and screwed financially, but mentally and spiritually, I was on like this super like upswing. And one of my mentors even said to me recently, looking back on this, he was like, you know, the moment where you had nothing in the bank, no prospects, nothing going on, you were totally screwed, but you felt grateful for everything you had and you felt awesome. He's like, that was the moment where your life changed. And I was like, yeah, you're totally right. You know, that was the moment.
Yeah.
And that's the rock bottom moment that a lot of people haven't felt, but the ones who have understand it. And then if you can leverage that into something positive, I feel like you have a lot of value to give.
Yeah, I think the watershed moments are sometimes the best thing that ever happened to people.
Absolutely.
You know, and a lot of people actually are unfortunate to never have that moment, because you know, we talk about drifting, you know, comfort, I think it's my quote, right? Comfort makes you lazy. And if you know, employers, you know, we know that generally, you know, you pay people enough to keep them around. And your superstars, you pay them a lot more. because, hey, that's just that's the way it works. And you can't, always pay everyone $1 million for a job that brings the business, 50,000. It, economically doesn't work that way. So a lot of people, again, are comfortable. They never bottom out. And so they just continue to live in a state of just drifting through life, man. And so probably the best thing that ever happened to you, really.
Yeah. Oh no, it absolutely is. I say it all the time. I know it is 100% because, if we would have just continued on the way it was very comfortable. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, I'm sure you are familiar with the lifestyle you can accomplish in Southeast Asia or even South America, these types of places on like expat foreign business money.
Yeah.
Income.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So like you can live like a king, literally, when my friends from Canada would come visit, they'd come to our house and we rented the bottom part of a big ass beach house. It was my best friend's house and he rented us the bottom suite. So it was this 2-story beautiful beach house. It was shaped like 2 different pyramids. It was on 10 acres of spa land. It was amazing. It's like a paradise. There was gardeners. They're called yayas, which are maids. They cook the breakfast. They make the beds. They literally do everything around the house and they're always there, literally doing everything for you.
Yeah.
So that you can just enjoy your life, right? People really know how to enjoy themselves, the people who have money. So when my friends from Canada would come over and visit, they'd fly in and, I'd have them picked up by our driver and then they would come through and the guard at the gate of the house would carry their bag. And then they'd come into the house and there'd be our maid there waiting with like bacon and eggs for them and like a case of beer in the fridge cold. And they would crack the beer for them and give it to them and like put their clothes away for them and shit. And they'd be like, yeah, so there's the laundry bag. Tell me what you want for lunch. Tell me what you want for dinner. Here's the menu of food. We had like a menu. And my friends were like, what the fuck is it? Is this a hotel? And I'm like, well, this is how most of us live here. And they didn't get it. And looking back on it now, we were so comfortable and spoiled and it's all good. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I needed that jolt of uncertainty to kick in.
Yeah.
Because if it would have just remained the way it was, I for sure wouldn't have gone into this world. I wouldn't be doing podcasts. I wouldn't be doing what I do online now, which is a totally different realm.
Right.
And there'd be no growth there for me. Right.
Yep. No, I'm with you there. And it's funny you bring up Southeast Asia and the Philippines. So our very first people from Get Staffed Up were in the Philippines. And you had asked me like why people would consider this model, et cetera. And then we, culturally speaking, I'm not trying to paint a broad brush and just say that everybody is all the same. But the language, the English is not as good in that part of the world as it is in Central South America and Mexico. And people and I had people in the Philippines, say this to me, but they're really trained to do their job and that's it. They're very good at taking orders, but they're not going to be your creative assistant. They're not going to take a lot of initiative and come up with answers. They're going to be, yes, I'm going to do this for you and do a good job, but only exactly what you tell me to do. So those experiences all led us to basically 98% of our people now come out of the Latin American world. The time zone obviously is different, but there's still such a tremendous amount of savings. So you can take advantage of economic arbitrage, pay somebody where they live very good for what they need for their lives, but it's still going to save you 60 to 70% of what you would pay someone here in the US. And when you hire someone in the US, what most people don't realize is if I'm paying someone 100, it's costing me anywhere from 135 to 145. You got to do a multiple of 1.35 to 1.45 because you're going to add in the overhead, the taxes, the insurances, all of the perks, the benefits, everything. And so we at Get Staffed Up, we hire the people, they work for us, and we essentially lease them out to our clients full time. So, the difference between us is we're mostly in Latin America. We don't do this part-time. I call it Tetris. Most staffing companies that have, virtual model or offshore model is, they got a building in the Philippines. They pack it like sardines. Everybody has a desk this big with their headset, right? And they do 10 hours a week for Tom, 20 hours a week for Sally, 5 hours, and the people own the business are constantly trying to fill hours. That's not our model. Our model is full-time only. We're going to find you somebody who's friendly, who's smart, who's educated, who speaks really good English, who writes really good English, just happens to live in a different part of the world. We're going to put them through a very rigorous process. Like this quarter, for example, Aaron, we'll have 5,000 people apply to work for us and only 1% will make it. We're going to basically grow by 50-ish people just this quarter. So we have 1% placement. So we're finding the best of the best. They sign a contract with us. They're our employees, so we take on all of the complicated rules and that we have to follow for hiring in their country. And then we lease them to you for a flat fee per month. So you're paying us as a contractor flat fee, and you're getting 40 hours a week from somebody it's really your team member, because there's no split loyalty. They're working just for you. They answer to you. They're a part of your team culture, but we're taking a lot of the headaches away for you.
I understand. Yeah, that's good. That's really good, because that is one of the big, the big problems is this Tetris model. It really is trying to fill hours. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, on your journey through everything you've been through and building your business and setting up your company and successfully growing it, did you have a personal transformation that happened that you didn't expect?
Well, yeah. I think it was the realization that in order to grow, you have to basically delegate everything. Like we have a trademark phrase, me and my co-founder, called Delegate Your Way to Freedom. Working on a book called Massive Delegation, and like the 80-20 rule, right? You got to analyze everything you're doing and get rid of 80% of it and spend the 20% on the very high value things, or the things that bring you the most pleasure, that you like doing the most. And then not long later, you got to do it again, right? Like maybe a year, maybe half a year. The 20% you kept, you got to, keep repeating that in order to grow. And I think for me, I didn't realize that my ego was holding me back. And so when I say that I had to learn that it was, my fear of failure wasn't because like, I'm going to be so hard on myself, I'm going to fail. Generally I've been a pretty high achiever, and the problem with going to law school is then, it's kind of like, oh, that this person is doing something with their lives and they're passing tests and they're smart. And so I think a lot of people that go to law school, have kind of where you get the horrible lawyers from, right? It's just a big, ego clash and things that don't need to happen. But it was basically, I was afraid to fail because of what I thought people would say about me. And once I learned that was holding me back and I wasn't any better than anyone else, and that I was making everything about me unintentionally, thinking that I wasn't making things about me. In fact, you can either be super egocentric, or you can be so afraid, like such an introvert that it's also narcissism, because you think if you go out in public, everyone's looking at you and like, well, that person's shy. Well, they may have just as big of an ego. It just comes out in a completely opposite way. So yeah, just kind of reading the self-help, right? But like the empowerment books, the Napoleon Hills, the Eckhart Tolles of the world. I don't know if it's just like one moment, but I think it's just a lot of growth for me and my mindset, where I don't have to do everything myself. If I do try to do everything myself, it means because like I'm the best at it. No, you're not. There's other people better than you. So you gotta, be big enough to admit that, and then bring on the team who's better than you. In the law firm, we've got a leadership team that's incredible. Our managing partner is just a badass. He's just, he's so good. and it gets staffed up, we eat our own medicine. 100% of our team is offshore. I think we're at like 16 employees ourselves now, and we're trying to find people that are just so much better than us at something very narrow that they could be good at. And when you try to wear too many hats, like I don't know at what point you get a business where you're not wearing multiple hats, but I'm not there yet. Like that's kind of like why you have to keep growing. It's because you think, well, if I get to like 3 people and then 6 staff members, then I'll be good. I won't be doing my own bookkeeping but you're still doing your own marketing and your own visionary, and there's just a lot to do in business.
Yeah. Isn't that an understatement? Interesting. It's like, I don't remember which person it was from history. Maybe you remember this story of the guy. Maybe it was Ford, maybe it was Rockefeller, or someone who was, sitting in his desk or something. And, a guy came in and they were saying something along the lines of, you don't know everything. Like, why are you getting all the money? Why are you the boss? You don't even know how to do that over there. And you don't know how to do that over there. And he was like, yeah, I don't, but you see this Rolodex here, right? I can make a phone call and I can have an expert here and he can do that for me. So this is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's, you don't have to be the smartest guy in the room on everything. You just have to have the most connections and the most influence, and be okay with other people. You need to bring on A players to your team. So I don't remember exactly who it was. It could have been Rockefeller. My first inclination was Ford, but then I was like, one of those things. But I want to make a distinction too, because what we do is not for everybody. So, you, for example, you, and I'm just guessing, you may have a few virtual assistants that are maybe from the Philippines, because that's kind of the world, like if you have a podcast and you have a system you need to follow, and I never quite read the full 4-hour work week, but basically you can get people for cheaper than what we charge by doing it yourself. And if you're doing, some digital things and some simple tasks, then somebody from the Philippines or Indonesia or India may be good. There's a place for everything. I just want to make that distinction, because I'm not saying the only way to, there's never one way to do something. And certainly there's a cheaper mousetrap than us, even though we have incredible savings, but we really hang our hat on finding the best people out there possible for positions that are, answering the phones, personal assistants, executive assistants, marketing assistants, people that are going to be a valuable part of the team. Because people always get that confused, like, oh, well, could I just go to Upwork? Yeah, or Fiverr. Those are good for project-based things. I still use those services. It's just not what we do, but it's fascinating how many things you can get done from behind a computer. You can get your a PDF designed and then plug it into a bigger marketing campaign that someone else is running for you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's true. It really depends on the need you're trying to fill, right? It really does. It sounds to me like, if you're placing executive assistants, people that are helping high level leaders in the company with their calendars and their phone calls and stuff, like, this is not something for someone you pick up on Fiverr. Like, you need a professional who's there, who knows your company culture, who's committed to the cause. They show up every day. They know the mantra of the company and they know the owners, and they're just part of the team, right? That's, you're providing that, right? Yeah. Cool.
Exactly.
Sweet, man. Well, Brett, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. I love it. It's been awesome and enlightening, and I thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And I know the listeners got a lot of value, man. So if they want to come find you guys and check you out and see what you're doing, where can they go?
So really the only way, but the fastest way, is go to getstaffedup.com. Obviously spelled just like it sounds, getstaffedup.com. And for your listeners, Aaron, if you go to the contact page, and it says, where did you hear about us? We do have something we would just like to give your listeners. If you type in the Growth Podcast, then we'll give you a $250 discount on your startup fee. So our pricing is very transparent to get started, for some buy-in, because then we go in this in-depth recruiting for you. It's $1,750. And then depending on the type of virtual assistant you need, we have 3 different levels. We have just a very clerical, like data entry. We've got the middle, most popular level. It's $1,850 per month, flat fee, all in. That's for your administrative assistant that we talked about, executive assistant, personal assistant, legal assistant, receptionist, intake person, happiness coordinator. And then the highest level is the marketing assistant. So go to the website, fill out the form, and we'll jump on the phone with you and just mention the Growth Podcast.
Cool, man. That's awesome. Thanks for the discount. The listeners love that. Cool, man. All right, man. Well, thanks for hopping on. I appreciate it, and take care of yourself over there. All right, man.
Hey, man, I really enjoyed it. I'm glad to be, I'm glad to know you. It's pretty cool. Good for you.
Absolutely, man. Have a good one.
Okay. Take care.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. By the way, there's some people who want to build an online business, but sometimes are scared of scams or who to trust. Or they begin and they just get lost in the daily task with no blueprint to follow, right? And because of that, they never get started and just end up staying in the same position year after year because time flies, So if you're thinking to yourself, there must be a way to create a predictable, stable income online, but you don't know where to start, I've got something you might enjoy. Head over to www.bjkugrowth.com. Watch a quick interview I had with my buddy. He's an 8-figure earner. His name is Bashar. And he gets into, how he grew into a successful online entrepreneur and how he now is helping thousands of others do the same. You're going to love it. I've seen so many lives changed just learning this valuable information from him. So it might just be what you're looking for, So go over to www.bjkugrowth.com. I'll see you there. And thanks again for tuning in and supporting the Growth Podcast.